friends. Some of you know that I come from Burundi, a beautiful small country in the central part of Africa. For much of my life, Burundi has been under different forms of authoritarian regime. And I lived there for more than 4 decades. And for all that time, I survived attacks with the guns and grenades, survived jail and torture, and survived being stripped of my dignity. And eventually had to flee for my life, first from in Rwanda and then here in Canada. And my worry, even when all those things was happening, was that maybe I will not die, but that I would lose something precious in myself, that I will lose my passion, that I lose my sense of who I think or I thought I was. Today, I want to speak not only as a witness of what was done to me, but also some lessons that I learned of what helped me stay alive and whole, when it would have been easier to simply give up and be broken. I would like to note first that difficult times, authoritarian regimes, they may look different on the surface depending on the context. In some places, is police coming to your house in the middle of the night, beating you up and taking some members of the family. It may be people in uniforms and curfews searching everyone they meet on the road. In other places, maybe hashtags and surveillance. But underneath all those regimes share a few things. They are dangerous to our bodies. They can touch, and they do touch our physical integrity. People get killed, or people die of consequences of decisions that people in power you make. They share the need to control our voices, to control our movements, and even trying to control our thoughts. They thrive on fear that they plant in people's lives, and people learn to walk on eggshells. So they think everyone is watching everyone is listening to anyone. And the trust, which is probably the foundation of any community and a strong society, eventually erodes. And the people start not to say anything, not to trust family members. They have to whisper instead of talking with confidence. But as I was going through all those things, I discovered something important, that I still had my imagination, my capacity to keep somehow freedom, inner freedom, and to project myself in a different place, in a kind of uncertain future. And I think this is important because when one is in danger of hurting or being hurt, the first order of business is to survive. And sometimes we feel, at least I felt, almost guilty for doing everything to survive. and surviving is important. We should all try to survive when we need to, when we are in danger. It's no time to think about, justice and legacy and long-term healing when what is at stake is surviving in a few minutes or a few hours. So I think I learned that when we need to, it's important to hide. It's important to think of ways for people who can save you. It's important to know who you can trust and who not to trust. It is important to ask all these questions. It's not selfish, it's critical. Because for us to help others, for me, if I wanted to help others who were in the same situation, survival was important, which was actually critical. We survive to tell the story. We survive so that fear, so that hurt, so that evil does not have the last word. And so surviving is important, and when the situation warrants it, we should not feel guilty for doing everything we can to survive. There is also the balance that we try to have about speaking up, about being out and trying to help others when we are not the ones in danger, and the cost of staying silent when we are not in the category immediately targeted. And this balance is difficult, and we may think, maybe that's not for me. But if we stay silent, something, even if we are not in danger personally, if someone is hurt and someone is killed, in a way, something dies in us as well. When we are not human enough, when we are not courageous enough to do something, say something, try something. And the question of how do we remain human? How do we remain the person we chose to be when times were good? How to remain a Unitarian Universalist with the same values that we know in a world that is trying to make us be afraid, scared, that is making us small and shrink, that is the way it's stealing our values. When our co-workers, when our parents, and when our family members and neighbors are in danger, what do? It may be difficult to know what specific task to do. But in my opinion and my experience, trying to do something, even a small something, making a phone call, checking to know when the person is, how the person is doing, giving information, giving a heads up. The other thing that kept me going is, in a very strange way, that I kept looking to the future without certainty that the future was guaranteed. I remember when I was in the prison cell, especially in the evening, I would think about things, about the people who were trying to get me out, the people who were signing petitions, and people who were trying to build a world where things like those that were happening to me would not happen. And so looking to the future in a way, dreaming for better days and better things, in a way helped me deal with the situation, helped me not give up. And as I worked for my survival, I was also not giving away my capacity to imagine, to keep hoping, for a different world, to keep hoping for a different outcome, and to remind myself of my conviction that they may strip my dignity in front of people that I was leading at the time, and keep me in a cell, keep interrogating me. But there were things they could not do, things they could not take away. And my imagination, the capacity to think about possibilities was not taken away, or could not be taken away. And as I was thinking about the future, Fleming Chalice International was in a way born from that situation, from that dreaming. When I would think about the connection I had with people, a symbol kept coming to my mind. It was a flaming chalice. I knew many people were Unitarian Universalists who were fighting for me to get out. And that helped me to create a world that no one could take away, but also that was in a way projecting me to a different reality. Despite darkness, I could visualize a future that did not exist yet. I could dream beyond the walls of the cell. And imagination can be a form of resistance, a refusal to accept what is, and a willingness to try to think about other possibilities. When I was in prison, members of my congregation and some friends and family would come and spend almost all day outside my prison cell. And that was important for me to know that people were providing witness, they were resisting. But also they were as scared as I was. But even as the world was collapsing, when the situation was not clear, people were trying to build micro worlds, small safe spaces where they could talk, they could find and think about strategies of how to solve the situation. And this kept me and the people going and supporting each other, not just thinking about the fear and the hurt, but also supporting each other in a space that was safer, where there was trust, where there were a different reality than what they were living in the world that was living inside the cell. They were making a statement that together they felt stronger. They read together, they sang together, they strategized. And as these micro worlds were evolving both outside my cell, in other places, in Canada and US and Europe, wherever people were trying to help me they kept both the truth alive, but also courage when it was needed. It was a way to pass the courage around. It was a way to remind each other that we were more than what other people said we were, what people were trying to hurt us were saying. The other lesson I learned during those difficult times were that as we try to survive, as we dream for the possibility of a different world, as we try to build safer micro worlds, it is also something we need to convince ourselves of, that good times will come. Because as we divide survival mechanisms and create micro-safe worlds, we really need to also keep our eyes not just here, but to the future. We may choose to resent people. We may choose to resent our leaders. It may not help very much. And when I had the first opportunity to go back to Burundi, I went into 2022. I chose not to resent my country and to believe that something good will someday happen. This is still a work in progress for sure, but I thought it was another way to make that future possible. To just make a brief, small statement that a different world is possible. Because hard times cannot survive forever. But truth, but our commitment, our engagements, they stay forever. Through the education, through the model we set, and through other people who we transmit those beliefs and those values too. And when those regimes fall, we have something still alive inside of us to offer to whoever is still around. So my question that I was asking myself, that we can all ask ourselves, is what are we building for when good times come? Yes, surviving is important. Yes, dreaming is important, but also building is critical. It's not enough just to resist, but to prepare. Because one day we need to build and live and share what we have built and prepared. If you spend years buried in fear, maybe opportunities to do something will come and you won't see them. We want to try to keep our fire going, however small, in different ways, that the fire does not go off in our deepest part of our lives, of our souls. I do not know when freedom would come, but I knew I wanted to still be myself, to still be passionate about helping my others and living my values when it finally arrived. Even in exile, even after torture, even with the scars, I believed I still had a choice to try to live the truth, a choice to try to dream of a beautiful, better world, and a choice to extend love in places where hurt is still present. We all know we cannot fight alone. I did not fight alone. Actually, more people fought for me than I did, because I could not fight. I made it through because others held the line with me and for me. And whenever we find ourselves in different situations, we need to make sure that we are holding the line for someone, for the people we know, the people we do not know, as people who need our help. I was not alone in the cell. I was not alone in the darkness, in the silence. The lesson was, we do not resist and fight alone. We do that together as a community. So friends, I say that in whatever form of hardship we face today, political or otherwise, we need to believe strongly that we are not powerless. We can refuse to hand over our souls. We can decide to keep our vision alive. We can decide to build the micro worlds of courage and beauty. And we can prepare ourselves for the good times to come. But for that to happen, we need to stay whole. We need to stay human. We need to stay alive in our deepest parts. Because if we are kind to each other and to ourselves, even when everything else is taken, we may be the person we said we want to be. We will say we fought the good fight. Thank you.
James. And I have been a member of Flaming Chalice International for 6 years now. I originally joined because my friend Mwibutsa asked me to. Um, but over the years, I've become someone who invests a lot of time and resources into the organization, not just because my friend asked me to, but because I've watched firsthand how something really amazing and different is happening in that organization. I've been involved for pretty much my entire adult life, trying to be helpful on various charity boards and often doing overseas work. And I've seen firsthand that it is very hard to usefully help solve a complicated problem in another culture. There's just so many barriers to figuring out what's effective and what the pitfalls might be and who to work with in another context. And Flaming Chalice has a somewhat unique approach relative to the other organizations I've worked with. I usually used to work with organizations of people who had resources and cared about something, and they would come together and make a charity and go and try and help. And the challenge there is you're not from the context that you're trying to be helpful in. Flaming Chalice International's board is made up of 3 different people who are from the communities that we are working in and myself. And what I've seen over the years is that this is an incredibly effective way of helping, that the decisions for how money are to be spent are very wise, very careful. Things stretch, anticipated pitfalls are foreseen. It makes an incredible difference when the decision-making power is located with people who are from the community that you're helping. There's some pitfalls with that as well. The biggest one being is that boards often raise funds, and raising funds is hard if you're working with all people who are from the community you're helping, because they don't have the same connections as you would get with an all North American board, which is part of where I come in. I'm often helping with fundraising and things like that, since I'm not so helpful with the making decisions of how things are going to be done on the ground in those countries. The other challenge that I see is that the board members who are making these decisions are also people who are in the process of trying to rebuild a life. Like you heard in Mwibutsa's story, there were a lot of challenges he faced, and then he came to Canada and had to create a life for himself and his family, and that can make it hard to have the same time as an all North American board would for various processes. And I've watched how they have created this lean structure that is incredibly effective, that is foreign to what I'm used to, that has been really helpful. If I can share one more brief thing on that topic of coming to a whole new culture and a whole new country and deciding in the midst of rebuilding something for your family, oh, I know what we're going to do. We're going to create a charity and help others. I remember asking Mwibutsa once, how did you do that? And he started by talking about the needs of the people. I said, you've misunderstood the question. I'm not asking why you did it. It makes sense why you did it, but like how? How did you have the hope and the wherewithal and the vision to do something so complicated in the middle of what would have been a really challenging personal time? And he told me a quote by St. Francis of Assisi, which is, start by doing what's necessary, then do what's possible, and suddenly you will be doing the impossible. And we give to causes that are close to us. And I'm hoping that by sharing a little bit of my journey with Flaming Chalice International with you, I can bring that organization and those people and the amazing work that they're doing just a little bit closer. And so I would invite you to offer what's possible for you to a truly amazing organization doing incredible work. You can use the links in the chat box or donate to Venmo on Breeze, or find us directly at Venmo at Sanctuary Boston. Thank you so much.
Friends, as we finish this time together, may we all fight and survive and thrive without losing our soul. May we all dream even when the night seems long. May we continue to build small walls of peace and sanity wherever we stand. May we never carry our burdens alone, but let solidarity become our protection. And when the world stays hard, a little too long, may our spirit remain whole, unbroken, and free.